Hello students. Hello students. Welcome to Epitome IAS. So as usual, we are discussing about the previous year's mains questions, particularly how to write answer, how to format an answer, how to bring ideas together to present a proper answer for the given question. Okay, so if you try to look at this question, individual parliamentarians' role as the national lawmaker is on decline, which in turn has adversely affected or impacted the quality of debates and their outcome discussed. Okay, so this is a question related to the quality of the lawmaking process in the country and the effectiveness of the parliamentary form of democracy. Okay, so before we get into the discussion how to write answer, let us get into some conceptual ideas. Okay, so basically what is the concept here particularly? So in India we have representative democracy, representative form of democracy. Okay, so who will represent the people? Okay, the people are represented by Lok Sabha at the union level and state legislative assembly at the state level, right? So this Lok Sabha should reflect the goals and aspirations of the people. Goals and aspirations of the people, right? Not only that, this Lok Sabha should be able to bring policies or laws which reflect current social, economic and political realities of the society, right? And moreover, we need to understand this Lok Sabha has another important role. What is that? Holding executive accountable. Holding executive accountable. This is also another important role. Holding executive accountable. Particularly if you try to look at Article 75, Class 3 of the Constitution, Prime Minister and Council of Ministers are collectively responsible to Lok Sabha, right? In this process, and moreover, so in this process, the Lok Sabha requires to perform its functions in most autonomous manner. Okay, that means in order to perform these functions, Lok Sabha has to come out of the shadow of the executive. Okay, it means Lok Sabha's role shall not be curtailed due to the executive. It should come out of the shadow of executive. Okay, why? Because most of the bills, it means in India what is happening, the legislative agenda, the duration of sessions and majority of bills, all the bills legislated by the parliament, this is actually influenced by executive. Okay, apart from Lok Sabha, of course, since we have bicameral legislature, okay, even Rajya Sabha has a role to play. Even Rajya Sabha has to ensure proper scrutiny of bills in the federal angle. Right, this is how we need to understand. Okay, so I think this is what the role of the legislature. Okay, basically the role of the legislature primarily be, what is it, lawmaking. Okay, generally when we consider what is the role of legislature, it is lawmaking, scrutiny of executive action, giving inputs to the government. Okay, ratification of public policy. Okay, and venting grievances of people. So this is how we need to understand the role of the legislature. In the performance of these functions, the individual parliamentarians have very important role. How we need to understand is, so let us get into the question. Okay, individual parliamentarians' role as a national lawmaker is on decline, which is in turn has adversely impacted the quality of debates. Okay, so in this context, in the light of these ideas we have discussed, we need to write the introduction here. Okay, na? Right. So we need to write certain points here. In the parliamentary form of democracy, parliamentary form of democracy depends upon autonomy of the legislative functioning. Okay, and it is strengthened by individual, the role of individual parliamentarian. Individual parliamentarian, where the member of parliament should be seen as representative rather than member of a political party. Okay, whose role is on decline in the recent times. Okay, so this is how we write the introduction. Okay, the effectiveness of parliamentary form of democracy depends upon autonomy of legislative functioning. It is strengthened by the role of individual parliamentarian, where an MP should be seen as a representative rather than member of a political party whose role is on decline in the recent times. Okay, so we need to address every individual dimension of this particular question. Okay, individual parliamentarian role on the national lawmaker is on decline. Okay, so now let us write, we need to write what is importance importance of an MP. That is nothing but individual parliamentarian. Why his role is important? Why his role is important? Okay, his role is important because, why is it important? Because Indian society is very diverse. Okay, hence the legislature should not be considered as a homogeneous group. Should not be considered as homogeneous group. Okay, and every MP will represent a considerable level of diversity in terms of values, opinions, interests, okay, and challenges. Okay, so that is how this legislature infuses a lot of diversity in terms of interest of the people. Okay, so definitely legislator has to stand, okay, as a representative of such diversity. Okay, right. This role can be visualized in terms of introduction of private bills, thus highlighting an policy proposal, a much desired policy proposal. Okay, much desired policy proposal. Suppose government is not coming up with a policy, he will provide some alternative policy, okay, or a policy direction, okay, or this also highlighting policy or legislative gap. Policy or legislative gap. This is how we can visualize the role of the individual parliamentarian. Okay. Apart from that, we can also see another important point where he can represent, he can, what is it, channelize the grievances of people in the form of question hour and zero hour and various other tools of the parliament. Okay, that is how. Next, he acts as part of access member. He is also a member of parliamentary committees. Helping in policy research, and scrutinizing bills scrutinizing bills, as well as functioning of the government, as well as functioning of the government. This is how we need to write the answer. Okay, right. Next, he can bring the matters having public importance to the notice of the government. So this is how we can write the role of the individual parliamentarian. Okay, right. So the question is, individual parliamentarian role as a national lawmaker is on decline. Okay. So this is how we can write the importance of the member of parliament. So see, you understand, when you channelize the grievances that may initiate a policy action from the government, that may bring a law in that particular matter. Okay, bringing the matters of public importance. Okay, scrutinizing the bills, like policy research. Okay, recommending the right policy, wrong policy, what is the wrong policy. That is how the individual parliamentarian can help in the bringing the reforms in the legislative aspects. Okay, but however, what is the question it is asking? However, in the recent times, the role of the individual parliamentarian as a national lawmaker is on decline. Okay, right. However, right, directly we should not write there is a decline. Okay, we need to write some context also. Okay, however, there is a decline in the role of individual parliamentarian as a lawmaker. Right. So how do you write these points? Okay, so we can write these points in this form. Okay, first one, the chances of passage of private bills, is very less. Okay, because till recent times the number of private bills passed is just 14 in number. Okay, right. Number 2, since 1970 no private bills is enacted so far. This indicates the lesser degree of passage of private bills by the parliament. Okay, so because there is executive dominance. Okay, right, and not only that, we can also see the decline of individual lawmaker because of the okay, and other reasons. For example, the bills are not referred to select committee or joint committee. Okay, and are directly enacted by or directly passed by legislature. So there is no detailed scrutiny on the bill. Okay, thereby the individual parliamentarians' role is very much curtailed because they cannot bring the required reform in the legislative aspects. Okay, right. Next, right. Since the bills are not widely consulted or widely circulated, and no effective consultations, it became very hard for parliamentarians to represent the views of the people at the larger level. Okay, right. Then we can write another point. Okay, like the Anti-Defection Act is seriously curtailing the freedom of speech and freedom of vote, freedom to vote, which are core for the representative functions. Okay, right. Apart from that, because we need to write what is the role of lawmaker. Okay, so because it is a lawmaking function, we are required to write only the points related to lawmaking. Okay, not only that, the delegated legislation, okay, which falls under the domain of executive, which is hardly debated in the House. Basically, you know what is delegated legislation, right? This is what the rule making power of the government. Okay, basically the law enacted by the legislature is very much skeletal form, and who will add the blood and muscle? Executive. So the rules and regulations which act as operational guidelines how the law is to be enforced. Okay, so this delegated legislation hardly falling under the scrutiny of the legislature. Okay, right. And so next, the debate, forget about passage. Okay, the debate on private bills is very lesser. For instance, out of 300 bills introduced in recent times, only 3 to 5% bills are debated, right? This is another important reason, okay, why there is a role of decline of individual parliamentarians. And apart from that, okay, right, let us write this way. Introduction of ordinary bills or financial bills as money bills, thus declining role of Rajya Sabha and its members. Okay, so this is how there is a decline of individual parliamentarian role. Apart from that, we can also write another point. Most of the bills are passed with guillotine motion. What is it? Guillotine motion. So this is another reason where the undiscussed part of the bill will be put for the voting, along with the discussed parts. So this is also a dangerous trend. So that is happening, right? And moreover, there is also predominance of public bills. Okay, predominance of public bills. Entire legislative agenda is cornered by the executive itself. Okay, and more particularly, there is also decline, a general decline in the quality of debates in the house. So leading to frequent adjournments. So that is also deprived the house for the considerable debate in the house, and moreover frequent promulgation of ordinances. Ordinances is also another important aspect. Okay, so this is how the individual parliamentarian role is on decline, right, which in turn has adversely affected the quality of debates and their outcomes. So this is impacting the outcomes. Okay, so this is what kind of outcomes you are able to see. Okay, so what are the outcomes? What is the outcome? Right, outcome means public protests on ill-conceived laws. Example, farm law protests. Okay, not only that, the civil society is becoming a platform for legislative debates or drafts, thus declining the prestige of the legislature. For example, you take Jan Lokpal bill. Okay. Apart from that, so there is another important point we can write. Okay, the dilution of RTA. So this is another important point, because RTA was diluted by amendment in 2019. Okay, where the service conditions of CAC and SAC are to be regulated by the central government. This is causing larger threat to the very act itself. Okay, right. Similarly, Motor Vehicles Amendment Act. Right. This also done in, I think, in 2019, where the penalties for traffic violations has been increased. So this became the motor vehicle commuters to have a lot of unaffordability to pay the penalties that were increased. Okay, resultantly what happened? States had opposed. Then what happened? The central government has given the suggestion that it is your wish whether you want to implement this amended act or not. So you just understand, this is how. Okay, not only that, when private bills are not considered, it deprives the government to have alternative views and to identify policy gaps. Okay, so this is how we can see the consequences. Not only that, we can also see increased unrest in the society due to lack of proper and efficient legal framework. For example, there is an overlapping between Lokpal, CVC in various matters, so leading to a lot of ineffectiveness in the laws itself, right? And there is also increased number of public interest litigations filed in the Supreme Court. So these are the various outcomes we can see. Okay, public protests on ill-conceived laws, example farm laws. Civil society is becoming a platform for legislative debates and drafts. Jan Lokpal Bill, the dilution of RTI amendment in 2019, motor vehicles amendment in 2019, where penalties for traffic violations has been increased and states have opposed. Okay, and when private bill is not considered, it deprives the government to have alternative view and to identify the gaps, increased unrest in the society and increased number of bills. So this is how we can find largely what are the reasons, what are the consequences of reduced role of the individual parliamentarians. So then we need to write way forward. Okay, way forward. Okay, so the way forward can be generally like, okay, increasing role of parliamentary committees. Okay, and so next important thing is considering debate over private bills. Generally, on every alternative Friday, it will be considered. We need to increase the frequency. Increasing its frequency. Okay, and reducing the utility guillotine motion. Okay, amending Anti-Defection Act as per National Commission to Review Working of Constitution, where it shall be limited to no conference motion. So in the rest of the times, the members shall be having the right to raise the matters. Okay, and increasing the duration of parliamentary sessions. Establishing a proper research assistance for members of parliament. So this is how we can write answer in the effective manner. Okay, I hope you are able to understand. Increasing the role of parliamentary committees, considering the debate over private bills and increasing its frequency of consideration. Okay, reducing the utility of guillotine motion and amending the Anti-Defection Act, where suppose NCRC-WC has recommended this particular ADA shall be limited to the instances of no conference motion, increasing the duration of parliamentary sessions, establishing a proper research assistance for the MPs. So this is how we can address the answer in the complete sense or holistic manner. Okay, right. So if you have any queries, please place your comment in the comment box and keep watching and keep encouraging us. Okay, it is a free initiative, and moreover we are giving you the original insights. So these are not the insights which are copied from anywhere. These are critically well thought points that can be immensely useful for your examination, right? Thank you.